Hello and welcome to a special product review. In 1994, Nintendo released the Super Game Boy, a device for the Super Nintendo that allowed you to play original Game Boy games not only on your TV, but in color. A really excellent device for its time. In 2003, Nintendo released the Game Boy Player for the GameCube, a device that allowed you to play not only original Game Boy games, but also Game Boy Color games and the new format for the time, the Game Boy Advance games, all on the GameCube. However, the GameCube controller is definitely not ideally suited for Game Boy games. With this tiny D-pad and just wrong button layout, it just really feels really bad. There are alternatives to the Game Boy, the GameCube controller, such as the Hori digital controller, which came out, but I still don't like that thing very much. Or you can use a RetroPort adapter by RetroUSB.com, RetroZone, and they provide allow you to use a Super Nintendo controller on the GameCube. However, why do that when you can have a device that allows you to play Game Boy Advance games right on a Super Nintendo? That's right. From the makers of RetroBit, from the makers of the RetroPort adapter and the RetroGen adapter, which I previously reviewed both these products, now comes a new product called the Super Retro Advance adapter. The way this thing works is it allows you to play Game Boy Advance games right on your Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, or 16-bit Super Famiclone. It doesn't matter what system you have. So I'm going to be going over this thing's features. First of all, if you look at the cartridge design itself, look at the bottom, it's actually shaped like a Super Famicom cartridge, so it has the curves, so it's not boxy like the Super Nintendo games are. However, it has the slits on either side for the slot loader of the North American Super Nintendo. This means that this cartridge will work on a North American Super Nintendo, a European Super Nintendo, or a Japanese Super Famicom, or any Super Nintendo clone out there. It doesn't matter what you use, this thing will work worldwide. So the way this works is you simply take your Game Boy Advance game and plug it up to the top, and then plug this into your system. However, that's not all there is to it. Like the RetroBit, RetroPort, and RetroGen adapters, this does not provide, or the Super Nintendo does not provide video and audio output through the cartridge. That's because this thing is not actually a Super Nintendo game. This is just using the Super Nintendo as basically a power source and control input method for its clone. This means that if you want to use this device, you have to plug in a cord onto the side of the device. It comes with this AV cord right here, which I'll bring out. Now the way this works is the AV connections plug into the TV, and then you plug this end into the side of the device. If you don't do this, this won't work. However, if you're using a newer RetroBit clone, such as the Retro Duo Portable, you don't even actually need this cord. The Retro Duo Portable will do it right for you, and as well as RetroBit's upcoming clone, the Super Retro Trio, that will also do the same thing. However, this is only necessary if you're using, the older hardware, which I'm doing right here. So, plug that in, just like this, and then plug that into the TV, and that's what provides the video and audio output. It should also be mentioned this comes with a Game Boy Advance link cable port, just like the Game Boy Player, which allows you to play, multiplayer games with up to 3 other Game Boy Advances. So one person would have the TV and you have 3 other GBAs. Alright, with all that said, let's plug this in and show you some gameplay. Just give me one sec. Video, audio, and audio plugged in. Alright, so, oh yeah, one other thing I should mention is the controls. Mapped to the Super Nintendo controller, you have a 1-to-1 button mapping. This means that the D-pad acts as the D-pad, start and select acts as start and select, L and R are L and R, and you have the B and A buttons acting as the B and A buttons on the GBA. This is unfortunate because, a lot of people like to use the Y and B buttons on the Super Nintendo controller. They feel that this is a more natural feel than using these 2 buttons. So, Yeah, I think that RetroBit kind of screwed up there, but I can see why they did it because, because there's all kinds of games that tell you, like, mash the A button or something. And, if you're not that familiar with GBA controls or something, you, like, they say mash the A button, which actually would be the B button here. But, you have to mash this button, and it's telling you to mash this one, or something like that. It'd be confusing. So with all that said, I'm going to be showing you some games. First up is Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. So let's turn this off and aim at the TV. Here we go. Turn it on. And I apologize, I can't get this really quite centered, but good enough. So, the differences between this and the Game Boy Player are really slight, but if you really compare the two of them together, you'll notice that this has actually better video output than the somewhat blurry video output of the Game Boy Player. Even though this only supports composite video, the composite video is extremely strong, much like the Game Boy, or much like the RetroGen adapter and RetroPort adapters both had extremely strong composite video output. Once again, this is the case here. Alright, so there's Super Mario Advance. How about, next up, here's another GBA favorite of mine. Mega Man 02. So let's start a new game, and here we go. Let's go. Game Boy Advance games all run extremely fluid and just like they should on the real hardware. There's really little to tell that this is a clone system. This works for every Game Boy Advance game I own, and I own almost 100 GBA games. So that's really quite saying a lot. One thing that should be mentioned is, unfortunately, this device does not play original Game Boy or Game Boy Color games. However, RetroBit has said that it might happen in future revisions, but right now it's only GBA. However, the Game Boy Advance emulation is so damn good. This is excellent. This is like a clone system, but this is better than any clone system I've ever come across. Alright, let's try a different game. How about, here's another favorite. Here's Golden Sun: The Lost Age. Lastly, I'm going to try one more GBA game. Turn it off, throw this one in, and here we go. Here is a European exclusive game. The amazing Asterix and Obelix XXL. The Game Boy Advance does not have any sort of 3D capabilities whatsoever. The system is entirely a 2D powerhouse. So for the Game Boy Advance to do a 3D game, it's all done through sprite trickery. And that's what's going on here. Check this. This is all done through careful manipulation of system hardware. Well, anyway, that'll about do it for this video, so if you have any questions, let me know, and if you have any games you'd like to see specifically shown, I'll show them in a follow-up video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.